All right, I'm going to throw some music up. See if you can guess this song.
Remind me not to hire you as a DJ for any bat mitzvahs, bar mitzvahs.
Hey everybody, it is shortly after 7 p.m. It's Wednesday night, and you know what time it is. We're going to talk some wrestling. I am Dreco Moses Previous here, along with my co-hosts, New Kent coaches Mike Foss and John Goodbody. And this is the Anvil of Crom from the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack.
Oh.
The original Conan with Arnold.
Digging deep.
Yeah, it's taking you deep.
What year was that made?
Like 1984.
I was more of a Beast
I thought it was late 70s for some reason.
Hey, and joining us tonight, we have a very special treat, ladies and gentlemen. I wish this could be live. We have got the man who knows things about wrestling, just a few things about wrestling, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Jason Bryant. What's going on, Jason?
I have a lot more stories about people than I have stories about wrestling. So those of you, as we solemnly will raise our glass to Fargo not happening this year. Rob's already rubbing it in with the turf mug. I've got that's a newer mug too. That's got the beer diploma on the back of it.
And that was actually like the first thing on my list of questions. You know, you are a special guest on this wonderful low budget podcast when Prevish prepares questions to ask. Usually I just kind of wing it, but you know, I've been on, Jason's had me on a couple of his podcasts that were kind of fun with Hot Rod in Fargo. That was a lot of fun.
I actually was on a podcast. That was awesome.
On Jason's podcast.
Yeah, we was on the Vawa show.
Vawa that was years ago.
Whatever happened with the Vawa
when
show?
They did the single.
You know, I am somebody who actually does get paid for doing things, and no.
Whoa.
Hey.
Low blow.
Hey,
well, everything on you's a low blow, Rob. Come on.
I know, I've got my oh my God. Yeah, we get paid for things too, but right now, like the three of us are doing like tele-teaching, you know.
Hey, I'm busting my butt as a special ed teacher.
He is.
You've got all those IEPs and stuff to write.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my kids to work out and not get graded for it. So
I'm trying to basically, it was such a failure of me trying to teach my second grader. My wife's, who's busy on meetings like 24/7. She works for a pretty sizable medical supply company in HR.
Right.
And like she has any time to do this anyway. Oh no, my 7-year-old, the second grader, just not really interested in dad teaching her. So and some of these things, it's like, well, thank goodness there's this one class. It's the info lit. They're specialists for the week. And, okay, pixel art. You know what pixel art is? It is creating artwork and designs using the shading and color features of Google Sheets. Wow. And I'm sitting there going, second graders? And so I'm sitting there and I've got all my databases and stuff. And I use a lot of, if I've got to collaborate, I'm using Google Sheets. My daughter Lucy comes in and goes, oh, look, Google Sheets. I'm like, why does a second grader need to know this? But I was texting Matt Small earlier today, the Great Bridge coach, about how he's holding up as a teacher. And he's like, dude, I'm working on teaching my kids, let alone my fourth grader. So it's like, everybody, that show now, are you smarter than a fifth grader? Nope, none of us are, because we haven't used that stuff in years. And then when you got to go back and be like, what value table? Like, what? Place values. What the heck? I've got a place value.
The way elementary school students have to do math now too. It's like
nah, dude. We're carrying the one in this house. We're carrying the one in this house.
Yes.
But
no calculator.
It's been pretty interesting. Man. I mean, we got the Chromebook. I'm sitting there going, wait, Chromebook, great. Google now has an address for my 7-year-old. My 3-year-old, not yet. Yeah. It's only a matter of time because they're all serving ads to our children these days.
Well, our like all of our students at Meadowbrook all have Chromebooks. Of course, they lose their Chromebooks. So like, I got to get all
part about a Chromebook, Rob, is if you lose it, you're out. What, $15-20?
Exactly. We go to Target and buy like a pile of them for like $100. But anyway, so Jason Bryant on Talkin Wrestling. This is like I don't know. This is like
Pretty pumped up about it.
Well, I just remember.
I hate to
when
say
first
pinnacle, but
I first heard Talking Wrestling. I'm mowing my lawn. I'm like, oh, it's this Rob thing. It's like I'm downloading. I'm listening to you guys talk about like historical characters in books and comparing them to people in wrestling. I'm mowing my lawn, and I'm like, who the heck is Sun Tzu? Like I'm honestly, I'm not that cultured. So I went and looked. Oh, okay. Art of War. Now, okay, so I had to do a little bit of. I had to look up some of those. Dan Carlin's Hardcore History actually did help me through some of those lessons that you guys, because being the history buffs that you guys are, I was like, okay, I need to be up on things because the history is history of wrestling. I got the general history. It's kind of sketch and books. I mean, I just finished the Hunger Games prequel in like 4 days, which is like
power through that.
Yeah, it was like 515 pages, and I finished it in a weekend, which is probably I probably should do that with like books that have like some learning value to them, like
absolutely
I don't know, history.
As we're talking about books, though, Kurt Jones texted me about his high school teammate Jeremy Smith helped work on a book called Wrestling Shoes. It's kind of about like how Coach Shu, the old Lee Davis coach, kind of got him back into the sport, and about some of the lessons he learned through wrestling. Jeremy, I know, is coaching at Patrick Henry High School now in like Ashland. So he's still involved with the wrestling community. I don't know if he wrote the book. JC, you might know a little bit more about it.
I've actually he sent me a note about it, so I've got it on the to get list. I'm not sure if I've actually bought it yet. I may have. It may be there. I actually finished Unmatched, which was by a guy named Brady Buck out of Colorado, and he chronicled the Tom Clum. For those that don't know, Tom Clum was an undefeated 3-time state champ going into his senior year. And if you're into Hollywood, you could probably have scripted this, but he gets beat in the finals in his last match. He was going to become Colorado's first 4-time undefeated state champion. They'd had 4-timers, but they'd never had an undefeated one. And it tells the story about this kid from Colorado Springs, and who was, had lost to him and had placed maybe once before. And it's like, like a real life Vision Quest. It actually happened.
Right.
Interestingly enough, Clum went on to be a multiple-time All-American at Wisconsin. The kid that beat him ended up wrestling D2 for about a semester, and then was never really heard from again and save a fight. But that was a really good book. So it's cool to go through and kind of like reading Vision Quest and seeing the movie, and you're picturing it's Matthew Modine, Loudon Swain throughout the book, and then to get to the ending, you're like, oh, that was awesome. It's one of those things where, no, nothing's better than Vision Quest. Well, a lot of things are better than Vision Quest. The book is better than the movie. And here we are, 10 minutes into the show, and we haven't talked wrestling once. We've been talking books and teaching. What has my life become, guys?
Well, the last book that I'll mention is John Hanrahan's Wrestling with Angels. And it's not your typical wrestling book. John Hanrahan was an All-American at Penn State. Actually, one of the guys that got me into wrestling when I first started watching Penn State. He was finishing up college, and it basically talks. And for me, as a health and PE teacher, it hits home because it talks about his addiction to cocaine through his early in his career, and it's pretty powerful stuff. Like to see, the journey that you go through when you're addicted, and he's since become veterans world champion. Is an incredible guy's going to be like. I think he's almost 60, and he looks like he's in fantastic shape. He's a great guy. And, I won the book in a drawing. I think he drew my name on purpose because I know him so well.
Shady, Prevish.
Let's give the kid down in front a prize. Oh, that's
Exactly. So
John Hanrahan, 2-time and NCAA All-American, finishing 3rd in 1981 and 5th in 1982, both at 167. I just actually happen to have that quickly accessible to this screen over here. So I may not know this stuff off the top of my head, but I can look it up very quickly.
Sure, you know enough off the top of your head too.
Well, I bought your Fargo guide finally, so that was pretty neat to look through.
It's like I'm eventually going to go back through the old amateur wrestling. You can't kind of see it off here, but maybe if I can tilt the camera for those interested over here to the side of the bookshelf. All that, you see those? Those are amateur wrestling news from 1956 to 2006.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to try to basically, before this COVID-19 stuff, I was going to go through each and every one of those magazines.
Right.
And basically digitally break down the scores, the placements and tournaments. And I'm going to do the same thing with the old NCAA guides, because somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Might as well be me. I mean, it's not like I'm doing anything. Well, sadly, now nobody's doing anything, and I am doing something. I'm spending more time with my kids, but I'm going to go through those AWNs, and part of that is to things like Fargo, because Zach Dominguez texted me the other day trying to win an argument with Tony Hager from IA Wrestle about who the best Iowa high school wrestler of all time is. He was saying it was Zach was saying it was David Keldegaard, who's got, I think, 11 Fargo, air quotes, placements and 8 titles, or Jeff McGinnis, who had a really solid high school career, really solid college career, but only had 3 titles. So 8 to 3 or 8 to 2, I think it was 2 titles actually. So, and I was like, hey, it's in the book. I don't really, and he's like, oh yeah, I bought it. And he's like, he says he thinks he won the argument. So it settles a lot of bar bets.
Oh,
It is also really good for those out there that like to embellish their career statistics and say, oh yeah, I placed in Fargo. No, you didn't.
Not so much.
I got proof. You know
Yeah.
how many times I've gotten texts from Jake Herbert on things like that? Be like, hey, this guy says he was an All-American. Yeah, he was 8th in the NAIA, and okay, legit counts. So
I'm doing the same
I set a
thing.
lot of bar bets.
Doing the same thing more or less with the National Prep website, or with the National Prep stuff, organizing like all the champions, all the All-Americans. And I love the guy, the guy that sends me all the information. Awesome guy to put it all together. But when you go from a PDF file to an Excel spreadsheet, it's all over the place, and it's taken me probably since January to figure out how to get it formatted correctly so I can break down the data. And Super Nerd has found out who. All the national prep wrestlers that went on to be All-Americans and all
How
that.
old a tournament is that?
What's that?
How long does that tournament go back?
1935.
Oh, wow.
I'm not gonna lie. We'll talk about like old websites and like data collection archives. Kurt Jones and I the other day, like it caused me to, and especially since Jason was coming on the show, I found his old Matt Talk Online archive page.
It's
was
there
looking
for
at
a
old
reason.
New
It's there
Kent.
for a reason.
I was looking at old New Kent results from the New Kent like tournament, like early in the season, the individual tournament.
Oh, man.
I found all sorts of gems on there. I mean, some of the results aren't there anymore because of like
I
the
think I used
website.
to have to call them into you when you were at Daily Press. I remember calling and telling you the results.
I would go to the Bay Rivers coaches meeting, and I'd go to the Peninsula District coaches meeting. I said, you got 3 ways to do this. You can fax it. Let's see, 757-247-4630, I think was the fax number.
That's impressive.
I need help. Hey, the Chanellos at ODU is 628-8000. I know that one. That was number 2 on speed dial back in my first freshman year. And then I said you could call them in, and at my number 464. I think Sonny Durst was 4640. I was at 4643. Depending on which night I worked. And then I had the form mailer on Matt Talk Online where you could actually enter it and it spit out the email in the exact style I could put it in the newspaper. So I didn't have to actually do anything. I just have to copy and reform it. Otherwise it'd be like, I remember Doug McMaster, the old Bruton coach, called me one time at a tournament, and he was really high on this kid from Northampton on the Eastern Shore. I was a senior in high school. He's like, yeah, this Jamie Cannon kid, man, look out for him. He's gonna be tough in the region. And then, sure enough, that guy beats, Cannon beats my actually the guy that started the Twinkie nickname, my neighbor at the sectionals, and then ends up outplacing him at the state tournament. And Cannon, I just remember like just those calls though. But I'd be at Phoebus High School, and the assistant principal, Kevin Davis, I think was his name. He's like, yeah, here's the thing. And I'd be arguing with Victor Holloway. I'd be arguing, Senzik was still at Denby at the time. And, there were some festive coaches meetings, it depends on, Gloucester had just about as many coaches as Pocosin did at that time before Ricky was finally, settling there. So yeah, it was old
Who
days
was
calling
that
him in.
coach before Ricky that he ended up being an assistant principal? He was a good coach.
Hartley, Doug Hartley. Well,
Yeah.
no, Brian Hartley.
Yeah,
Doug Hartley
yeah.
was the coach at York. They both went to York.
You went
Why
to
do I
Daily
know
Press.
this? Jeez.
You went to Daily Press, and you went to Virginia Pilot, or are you doing both at the same time?
No, the Pilot, they were separate. So I was at ODU, but working at the Daily Press. I took about a year and a half off and then came back and then went full time and then got pulled off of wrestling, then quit 2 months later. So that's the short version of my 8-year career there.
So, which actually brings us to like one of my real questions. So what sparked your interest in wrestling and journalism? Like how did this all happen?
Well, the journalism thing was pretty simple, being a sports nut. I grew up in Newport News before I moved to Pocosin. Granted, the move from Pocosin or move to Pocosin was, let's see, right turn, left turn, right turn, straight for about 8 miles. Left turn, right turn, right turn, left turn. I'm there. I mean, it was literally that short of a trip. My dad had his boats docked in Pocosin for a long time before he moved over first with my late stepmother, and then we moved over about a year later. But in 5th grade, I'd be listening to Tony Mercurio. Anybody that knows sports talk radio down at Hampton Roads was, Sports Radio 1310, AM 13. Now it's ESPN 94.1. It's the all sports station down there. And I'd listen to Tony. I'd call in the show. I was 10 years old. Be like Jason in Newport News. Richie Somerville still works there. Had that great high school football scoreboard show, which I would even listen to when I was living in Pennsylvania and Minnesota, because I wanted to keep up on what was going on, because I've got no real ties to the area here yet. It was really my kids. I can't really go Irondale. My kid's 7. And they're not really that good right now. But the one cool thing about the school district I live in now is the most famous wrestling alumni from Irondale High School is Road Warrior Animal. So we're good there. But 5th grade, man, I'm listening to OD basketball on the radio. I'm listening to OD men's and women's basketball. I could pick up Xavier University men's basketball out of Cincinnati on 700 WLW when it got dark and the signal from the 5,000 watts from Cincinnati came over the mountains, and I could pick Pete Gillen era back when they beat Georgetown in the NCAA basketball tournament. But I just knew that I was just a sports fan. I was like, I want to be a sports broadcaster. I want to be on ESPN. I'd missed the bus because I was waiting for Orlando Magic highlights on SportsCenter. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of basketball references. I haven't even mentioned wrestling yet. But so then 7th grade comes around. It was 90 in March 92. We're moving. We were actually looking at spots in 2 places, Pocosin and New Kent. Man, how my life would have been a little different if I had
New Kent was still out.
What was that? What's the golf course called? Brookwood? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Brookwood's. Brookshire now. Yeah, Brookwood's probably the old golf course then.
Yeah, because I think the racetrack is kind of close to that now, right? Dude, it's been so many years since the Stuckies wasn't even there yet. That's how long ago that was for us looking at possibly moving to New Kent. When the point was what had the school systems were comparable, so it was like okay, and it was we found a house on the water in Pocosin, and that was kind of like the win, so that's why we moved there. Mm-hmm. And if it really was into sports, it was kind of Pocosin, man. None of you guys have ever. What's Metallica? It was like 10 miles of culture shock. Mm-hmm. So, I fancied myself a basketball player. I'm short, slow. Well, I'm not super slow, but I'm short, kind of chubby and white. So that pretty much ruins my basketball skill set there. But, all jokes aside, it just, I was into sports. I knew I didn't really want to have any. I mean, I played sports. Baseball was probably my best sport. And, I just really didn't do some rec basketball. Really didn't really want to play any high school sports until got taken to a wrestling match my sophomore year. We were wrestling Deep Creek, and we won. It was 36-33 on January. 2 days later, I skipped school with my buddy Terry Daniels. He's a guy that used to work the chain gang at the football games, and old Pocosin alumni. Grew up. Was in that Pocosin heyday of the mid '70s where they were just winning everything. So it was one of those things where he's like, "Hey, you want to go to the match?" I'm like, "Sure." And then took me to the Virginia Duels, and then wrestling kind of here it is. I see my first match on a Wednesday. Friday, we beat the 18th ranked team in the country from Georgia, and I was kind of hooked. 27-26. Hampton Coliseum only had 6 mats at the time.
Oh wow!
The first year of the National High School Tournament.
Oh wow!
It was there were some beasts out there. Like I will always remember sadly the beating that Jared Herr took from Mike Shingara from Line Mountain, Pennsylvania, who was probably one of the meanest high school wrestlers I've ever seen. Steve Mako's up there. I'll put three up there against anybody. Steve Mako, Mike Shingara, and Donnie Bishop from Grundy. Those were the 3 meanest high school wrestlers I've ever encountered in my life. So, but again, I got into wrestling there, and then I had ideas about, I was in journalism 1 at the time, so 10th graders can take that. And then, the last 2 years, you're in 2 and 3, which is the newspaper staff, and just got into wrestling. I was, no desire to wrestle. And then Billy Ruff comes to town, and, for some reason, he always tells the story, Twink, I rescued you from basketball. Well, that's true. I had a cutout basketball on my head, running around the gym with signs, and, for a 1-22 basketball team. So my career prospects there were pretty low. Slightly better were the wrestling mats. So I got dragged into the room, brought Emil Cochet was our starter 215. It was kind of towards the end of the season. Jeremy Gregg was moving down to 189. And I was like, all right, well, heavyweight. We had a couple bodies. Curtis Booth was a rising freshman. And a guy named Dan McAdams had just moved back from North Carolina. And we're like, all right, well, let's go to off-season practice. And then it ends up like the guy I brought to be my drill partner ended up just destroying me. So here's your spot, Dan. Now you got to learn how to wrestle too. So,
what year was that?
And that would have been 1996, 97. My senior year was 97. Well, the McAdams name, you might remember his younger brother was Chase McAdams,
Yeah, I remember.
who ended up started wrestling that year. So the year back when I, fast forward several years, 10 years at this point, 12 years, I'm driving through. I decided to drive to do the ODU Virginia Tech match at the Concert Center, the TED, as I named it. And so, I went to the AAA state tournament that Friday, got in the car that night, drove to Salem, ended up basically spooning with Rob Green, who they let him and Jimmy Jones let me crash on their floor. Well, I eventually moved to the floor. Rob's really not my type, but and then so the next day it was the year that all the hijinks went down at Pocosin, and it was a real weird kind of situation. And all the kids just really performed, and it was kind of really a special moment to know that I was there to watch Chase finally win a state title, because he was, as his dad Fred would say, Chase was perfect as his first year, perfect as last year. Was first year he wrestled, he was like 5-6 years old. Went 0-16 and got pinned 16 times. Senior year, he's an undefeated AA state champ, and it was one of those situations, man. I'm sitting there watching him win a state title unannounced. I wasn't supposed to, nobody knew I was going to be there. It was just one of those special
I remember
moments.
seeing you there.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Williams won his 4th title that year. That was really cool to see. He was another PWA kid, and from Precious Tab. It's an old nickname from back in the day, but it's one of those.
That's
things
the rivalry.
Those end of the 90s, like early 2000s, there's some studs that came out of Pocosin, Akers and Jackson.
I used to give Akers a ride to school. Victor, when Victor was, because Victor was he's hanging out with you guys now up in New Camp. What the heck?
He helped us out.
He lives in accounting.
Yep.
And so Victor was friends with Mike, obviously through PWA, and Victor started coming to church with us and Mike, and then he had gone to, I think he had went to 8 different high schools his first 2 years. He might have been at Denby 2 or 3 different times, because a lot of there's the tie to the peninsula. He ends up at Wilson, ends up being a state runner-up there. One of the stories about Victor was his sophomore year. He was down like 9-1 to Josh Haskell from Ocean Lakes in the Concy semis. Top 4 go to state. He pins him to qualify. So he wrestles Nate Parker for 3rd and 4th. Right. And the old writer at the Virginia Pilot, Robin Brinkley, I was like, man, these 2 guys that are just all world. Nobody's ever going to hear from these guys again, because it's Churchland versus Wilson in the 3rd place match. On the other, and the championship match, it was Richard Slocum versus Jeff Byrne, who had Jeff or Jason. They were twins that went to First Colonial. One with the Princeton, one with the UVA. I think Jeff was a state champ. And then the next week, Victor beats Byrne in the semis, and then makes the state finals against Slocum, loses to Slocum, ends up getting adopted by the Thackers, and they'd moved to Pocosin. So Victor was there for 2 years, but I'd given Mike rides to school for 2 years. And then, it's just cool to, him and Jacob Inge and that team, man, those teams that Billy got when he came in, and, he had, the thing is, it's like, oh, you had guys. Well, he had some nice guys. It was like Akers was too nice on the mat. Yeah. Billy taught him how to get mean. So I remember Mike's mom, Nancy Akers, you made my boy mean. He hit that kid. Well, it's just a hard club to the side. So mark. But yeah, those were fun days, because back when, Steve Martin's at Great Bridge, Terry Purdue's at Western Branch, you had the Cox machine was starting to grow back. I mean, you had some really first.
Dresser was at Grundy, right? Dresser
was at Grundy. Dresser was the first opposing coach I ever interviewed, because Mark Vandervoort, who was my high school journalism teacher, always told us it's always good when you're doing things for high school and whatever to get the opposing coach's viewpoint, because so many times, with school papers, it's just like the one-sided coach, even the weekly papers can do that. And I was taught at an early age, get the opposing coach's viewpoint if you're writing for one outlet, and even with the daily press. You don't really like a one source story, so always try to get the head coaches from both teams, or at least a couple players or something, depending on who wins or how good the game was. But I remember sitting there with Dresser. We were in the same hotel, and I tracked him down because the Grundy radio guys that had came to the Virginia Duels, I'd met them earlier in the year, and they were like, I see Jim Wayne Childress sitting there in the hotel lobby the first day at the state tournament, and I'm talking Akers, man, and he, so he's a freshman, he's gonna win it, and he ends up wrestling Alex Gibson in the finals, wins pretty handily. But during the course of that tournament, we always called him Dressler. We thought it was Kevin Dressler. And the VHSL handbook, actually, the old bound handbook that had the coaches.
Yeah.
The wrestling coach at Grundy Senior High School was a guy named W.J. Caudle, according to the book. Well, Jim Wayne Childress, no, he's the bus driver. So it wasn't even Kevin Dresser. I don't know if it had something to do with because Dresser wasn't employed by the school system and he was brought in by Robertsons. I don't know if it was looks and appearances kind of thing. Kevin Dresser's our coach. And I'm like, I don't even know who Kevin Dresser is, And then, I track him down. I'm interviewing him. And that team, that 96 team at Grundy, still I don't care how highly ranked some of these monster Great Bridge teams were in the 2000s. That 96 Grundy team was the most phenomenal team I have ever laid eyes on from the state of Virginia. 7 sophomores, 7 seniors. It was a split. There were returning state champs like Doug Adkins. Peace out. You're not in the lineup. You got to the point where he quit. So, and actually we'd seen Grundy wrestle Great Bridge earlier that year at Oscar Smith and beat him pretty handily. And then the 3-pounder, Herschel Justice, ended up wrestling 125 later that year. Well, 7 seniors, 7 sophomores. All 7 sophomores made the state finals, and 5 won it.
Yeah.
They lost 5 matches the entire tournament. All first year of 215, 14 made the semis, 12 made the finals. They had 9 champs, 3 seconds, and 12 and 2/3.
Wow.
What about that year at Great Bridge though? Where I forget, I should know it because I was wrestling.
No, I don't care. I don't. The Frischkorn era, that monster team with the Frischkorns and Bond and all that. These boys from Southwest Virginia, again, they're just going to beat the crap out of you. Donnie Bishop was a sophomore. Scott Justice was a sophomore. I mean, just monsters. And we scored 167 points at the state tournament and had 9 state place winners. That's a pretty good year.
Mm-hmm.
We were second by about 168 points.
Oh, wow.
Grundy, I think, was 328.5. So that's the year. Then I tracked down Dresser. We're like, all right, yeah, well, we think we got a shot at winning it next year. He goes, oh, you won't win it next year. I guarantee that. And then he left. Because we saw seven graduates. We're like, oh, cool. Half their lineup's gone. We had everybody back.
Right.
I'm trying to think. Chris Thompson was our only senior, 96, and he took 4th, losing to Damon Hill from Nansemond River, who they went AAA the next year. And he actually ended up winning a state title for them at 171 as a junior, and then got hurt and didn't wrestle his senior year. So when I see Trip Seed with some of those Nansemond River state champs, I'm like, Damon Hill, man, Old Bay Rivers. Or they went AAA.
Nansemond River used to be a part of the Bay Rivers. Were they at that point?
96, 97, they moved to AAA.
Yeah. With Nansemond River, I think John Bostwick, because he's from Lewistown, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with John. Talking about like the Grundy team, like it reminds me of the 2010. I mean, not in the same level, but like 2010, my second year at St. Chris, we had like all 14 in the semifinals of the state tournament. We were up by like 100 points after day 1, and had like 10 in the finals. So I mean, just ridiculous stuff like that. Like with Grundy and it's just ungodly stuff. And I look at that team, I'm like, our team this year would smoke that team. Like 2010 was with Brandon Jeske, and I think this year or last year's team with Connor Alexander and Jackson Turley, they would have smoked that team, in a heartbeat. It was crazy.
I still think I don't know. Maybe it's not the recency. It's the opposite of recency bias. It was my first eye-opening experience.
Yeah.
I mean, going to Salem is an experience into itself. I mean, I love the town. I love the town. I hate that building. Oh, I hate that building more than life itself. Actually, probably I almost hate that building as much as wood ceiling, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. But the winter by peeing is always something that we'll always have. I mean, Rob, you coached there when you were at Massaponax and they were AA.
Paul and Waynesboro.
No, they did not say the dreaded that word. That word was not said.
No, winter by peeing from Tunstall.
Yeah, it would be like from Virginia High, from Magnum Vista. Some of these schools aren't even around anymore. Laurel Park is not even a high school anymore. Fieldale Collins. What is it?
Yeah, they split
down. Yeah,
that's like Bassett, where right they can come.
Bassett.
I remember what was it? What was his name? Miller from the heavyweight. Andrew Miller? Was that his name? Yeah. Where he's out there wrestling in Fargo at a cadet. So I'm like, Bassett? What the hell is Bassett had an All-American in Fargo?
Coach for Christiansburg later.
So what's that, Mike?
He Miller coached for Christiansburg. I don't know if he still does.
I think he still is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was because he played football at Tech, but it was just like Bassett.
Yeah.
No, it was
You remember Steve Bedrecki, right? He was Steve Bedrecki wound up moving to Bassett and coached Miller in high school.
Because Bedricki's, I believe, Joe Baranik's brother-in-law, right?
Maybe Baranik's. I know that he's brother-in-law with the guy that was coaching at Warren County when I was at Waynesboro.
Roger Seamiller, is that it?
Roger Seamiller, yeah, because they're from Altoona. Married into the Sheets family, believe it or not.
Oh. Like Breezewood?
No. See, Sheets is an Altoona, Pennsylvania company.
I know, but the first time anybody from down south experiences it is when they're driving north into Breezewood.
Yes, good old Breezewood. So
you don't go that way if you're going to Manheim, Mike.
No, but I have been out there going towards Iron Man.
Oh man.
God, I was going to the first year I went to the Iron Man. They rented. I was working the NWCA, leaving Lancaster. That's Pennsylvania, not the one in the Northern Neck, which my parents are actually from. And I got stuck between Somerset and somewhere in the Turnpike, and there was 4 hours just sitting there because there's no exit. It's not like 64 where you can ride the shoulder for a half mile and get off in on the way to Central Garage or something or whatever. I don't know. I think it's on 295, right? I don't know. It's trying to remember the geography.
We actually got pulled over on the Turnpike coming back from Ironman this past year. We had a little minibus, so I wasn't driving, which is
who was driving?
Of course never mind. I almost went somewhere really bad.
We had a minibus that one of our parents got for us.
Oh, that's right.
We had a driver, and apparently, like on the Turnpike, you can't be in a bus or a tractor trailer in the far left lane. And it's like, late at night, and like I was sleeping, I woke up and we're getting pulled over, and the state cop is a Yinzer from, Southwest PA. It was like having Bill Swink as your state cop pulling you over, with that accent. And I was like, oh man. And I guess the driver got a bunch of tickets for speeding and going, driving in the left lane. There's like nobody around us. And as the cop is like yelling at our driver, oh, there's a tractor trailer going in the left lane. There's another one. And our driver's just counting the trucks that are just passing us in the far left lane. They're like, wow, well, that will get back to school. Cause when I'm driving and I'm speeding in a school zone, like somebody calls a school and next thing you know, I'm getting yelled at.
Well, speaking of buses and Rob driving, so I go back. Where is it? It was
we're going up 95.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what year it was. I think we'd flown to Virginia, and it was around New Year's, because then we flew to Virginia, like in the Hampton Roads to see my folks, and then we were going up to New Jersey for my buddy Nate Shy's rating. Nate Shy was a state champ at Bethel in '98 at 103. Actually beat Donnie Pereira in overtime in the state finals. Then moves to Pennsylvania. Ended up wrestling in Lancaster at Franklin Marshall. And, so I was going to his wedding, and we were going to do New Year. It was right after New Year's. Actually, it was before New Year's. They were getting married on New Year's Eve. So my wife had a bunch of these Hilton points or Sheridan points or whatever we had. So we're like, all right, we'll go up and it was before we had kids. We go up to New York City. We did Times Square. It was right after Snowpocalypse, by the way.
Yeah.
So it was and
we were going to Hayfield. I think that's where
it was something. Well, I'm driving on 295, and I see this. I was like, I'm driving this rental car, and I see this. What looks like I think is a St. Chris van, because they got the short bus with the silver and the red piping, and I'm like, I was like, I wonder if that's St. Chris. I'm just driving. I drove by it. I was like, and I look, and I think that's John Gordon driving, because John's got a really notable side profile. He's got that look. And
he was probably texting.
Yeah, so I sit there and I'm like, hold on. I call Prebish. It's like, hey, what's up, man? You on 95 right now? Yeah. I'm right behind you. I think I just passed John Gordon. So we do this whole like weave thing and like, and they were like waving at it. He's driving the bus, and it's like just a random, hey, there's a Rob. So all right, guys, see you split. They go up north. We're heading another way up to New York. So that was the random St. Chris bus. And then last year, another random Prebish story. Last year, my college roommate, my first freshman year.
He's
from Appomattox. Actually wrestled for Conkrite down at Appomattox.
Oh yeah.
And so his sister reaches out via Facebook and says, "Hey, it's Jay's 40th birthday. He's coming into town. We're going to surprise him because my friend Trevor was supposed to come in. I think he was coming from Kazakhstan initially, and then got hung up in San Diego, and then he was late, and then I got there, and then Jay's daughter had a rat. It was really a weird situation. Well, I get to my hotel. I'm like, I said, all right, I'm going to fly in and out. I'm going to come in Saturday night. I'm going to be out Saturday morning. So I fly in, I get my hotel. My wife books me one. I was like, because I'm trying to head up to the Capitol Ale House, man. I mean, I know that it's got several beers on tap, and I'm like, I don't get a chance to sample the local fare in Virginia very much, and I'm a bit of a craft beer snob. So I'm like, all right. Well, it's right across the street. Great choice. So I text Rob. I'm like, yeah, I'm in town. I mean, I got a couple hours to kill. It's like, yeah, I live 3 blocks from there.
I'll be right there.
I'll be right there. He comes walking down the street wearing a Lehigh wrestling shirt and like, all right, let's, and then
That's a nice cap ale.
Yeah,
hit the Uber over to, I think let's see where that's Chesterfield. It was a little bit, about a 25-minute drive, but
yeah,
and then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, it's just 2 random Richmond Rob stories, just unannounced. I mean,
Rob just runs it down here.
I would have figured after the year I was like 19 or 20 years old, rooming with him in Fargo.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day on Memorial Day. You were your first Fargo experience. He was your roommate.
My first Fargo was 99, and
talking with me in 2001.
Yeah, because I'd already been a veteran by that point. I'd already known where the Taco Bell was.
Oh my gosh, that was interesting, because like I barely knew who you were. My perception of Jason Bryant was clouded because at camp I roomed with Ben Summerlin, and he was kind of a little angry at the time with Jason.
A little bit. I don't know how many. I mean, he choked me out multiple times before I let him move into my house at Old Dominion.
Yes.
This is when he was still at Longwood.
Yes. So my perception of Jason was clouded, by that. And then like once we got there and we started talking and all that, it was actually it was pretty funny. And the funniest moment I thought was you decided to leave the window open, and we left for the day, and it freaking stormed.
Oh yeah, typical.
So your mattress like basically became a sponge, and mine was nice and dry. It was all.
Well, that actually did serve 2 purposes, because at that point I really wasn't always showering every day.
This is true.
So all I had to do is just roll over, scrub the. Yeah, I'm good. No, I'm completely saying that for effect, maybe.
True,
but
this was yeah.
Yeah, there were definitely some. Virginia USA Wrestling was extremely tolerant of me in those years, because here they are. They bring me out there. The first time I ever got on a plane in my life was to go to Fargo. I mean, think about that for a second. Like, I'm hearing the story about Jaden Cox. Like, yeah, I had to get a passport to go to Mongolia. I never, I had to, like Zach Elam had to get a passport to go to Slovakia. These people had never really been on planes before. I was like, I don't think Jade had been on a plane until he had to go to Mongolia or something like that. Or might have been, it's one of those things of wrestling the only time. And I was like, yeah. I mean, and the thing is, back then that was also pre 9/11. So on the way out, my name was Gary Alcon, because he was supposed to ref in Fargo and couldn't make it. And on the way back, I was Jason Cox, who the same Jason Cox who was a state champ from Amherst. And so everybody's just whatever. I remember on the check-in in Minneapolis, oddly enough, where it's like, okay, Mr. Cox, just need to see your ID. And I just looked at him, and I got a giant goatee. I'm probably let's be generous. I'm probably on the upper side of 290 at the time, and it's like, and I just looked at it, I was like, I'm only 15. I just threw that out there. I was 19. But he goes, okay, that's cool. Like, oh my goodness. It's like, wow, the airport security back then, just believing I was some 15-year-old fat kid with this giant monster goatee, and let alone a state champion and a kid who was a match away from placing in Fargo. Jason Cox was awesome.
He was tough.
Yeah, but that was my first trip, and B-Dubs wasn't even built yet. I got a turf mug. I'm not going to tell you how old I was, or how old I thought I was, or how old the state of Alabama thought I was. But I'll tell you, it wasn't what the state of North Dakota thought it was. We're all adults here. This isn't a Vawa show. I'm not talking to kids. We're talking wrestling. So my indiscretions as a youth did shape me in terms of ways of knowing not what to do. And like my RA, my freshman year at ODU said, "Hey, if you're going to be stupid, be smart about it." And that has actually been some of the best advice I've ever gotten.
Pretty much.
Exactly.
That's some pretty good advice.
It is. So we might as well I actually have this freaking list of freaking questions here.
Are we even to that yet? Because I know my wife's got a call in 45 minutes. I think we can make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not obviously not going to get to all of these, but like, this is like, kind of theoretical question. So if you could pick your dream team of announcers for wrestling,
You read my mind. That was the question I was going to ask.
I just want to know why you're using Garrett Coelho's name on your tag there, John. Because I even know who that is.
Previous, he coached him against me, and I did not get my hand raised.
That was an L for Coach Goodbody.
Coelho's now
I remember him, and I remember the would you have a Russian, a Moldovan, Rob? You had somebody.
The headlock.
Yeah, you wanted to take him to Fargo, but he had to go home or something. Right?
He was losing in the regional final, and he just freaking smashes the kid's nose. I'm like, Mocon, what'd you do? He's like, I not win, so I break face. Okay, all right, man. Oh, yeah. So
Twitchy props.
What's that?
Twitchy previous days, man.
Twitchy, oh my God, that was angry Twitchy Prebish.
Well, angry Twitchy Prebish was when you were at Waynesboro.
That and probably like my first 4 or 5 years at Ponix, and now like I rarely lose my voice. I rarely get out of the chair anymore.
Maybe subdued.
No, it's just growth. It's like realizing that you can't treat people, without dignity when you're coaching. Like if you want to get I have to be there for the wrestlers. So if you want to get stuff like those close calls for your wrestlers, you have to approach the situation in a certain way, and it's really worked. I've evolved.
Got to play the game. Now, Speaking of Massaponics, I think the only great Massaponics story I have is on a bus ride back from Fargo, the sleeper buses. I beat Josh Wine about 50 straight times in Connect 4. He got so bad. Now, granted, I did win the Connect 4 tournament on the way out.
Yes.
I even have a bracket. It was on Matt Talk. I got to find those from the archives. I actually have the bracket.
I know you
use Kreider PC tournament software to create a Connect 4 bracket. And I was making fun of everybody who had transferred to Great Bridge. It was like, oh, hilarious stuff. We all didn't take it seriously either. Like, Matt Small, he brought Connect 4. He brought the Ric Flair autobiography. I remember watching Aqua Teen Hunger Force in the back of the bus or at a truck stop in the middle of Indiana with Matt Richardson. Matt Richardson was a freshman heavyweight at Great Bridge, sitting here reading a book, looking at me like I was a complete blithering idiot because I was watching a show with a talking meatball, milkshake, and French fries, and thought it was hilarious.
That was quite. That was quite. I remember waking up with Jordan Fishborn about 2 inches away from my face, like, "Coach, what are you doing?" It's like 4 in the morning. I'm like, "Hi, Jordan, go away, scaring me."
That bus ride back's first time I ever watched The Usual Suspects.
Oh, great movie.
Yeah, I was like, I was like, no way. And that wasn't that your DVD or your VHS, Rob?
Probably, yeah.
You kept wanting to throw in Blade Runner or something like that.
No, not Blade Runner. No.
Brunan.
No. I don't like stuff that sucks.
Hey, what about your question, Prebish, about comparing Virginia now, Virginia? Curious about that one.
We gotta go Dream Team announcers first.
Oh, we didn't get the dream team.
Yeah, who's your dream? Like, if you were going to go do NCAAs tomorrow, who would you want on your dream team?
Okay, you got to give me how many people's the dream team? What are our roles too? That's the one thing that makes.
I don't know. I mean, how many do they normally have?
2.
Okay. Well,
2 other play-by-play.
Well, no.
Doing interviews.
You're talking PA or because.
Let's do play-by-play. Let's do play-by-play.
Well, here's the thing. The role has shifted over the years. It used to be action and ceremonial. So when I started going to nationals, Ed Aliverti had since been retired of his duties. The NCAA let him go. Oh, this is a story I hear. I do not know that. I mean, I knew Ed. I never asked him about it before he passed away. That's the story that, kind of Sandy gave me when things happen that way. I think, I'm not, some of that drama is probably not worth rehashing because it's all secondhand anyway, but it became a action announcer calling the action of the match, and then the ceremonial announcer, which is the awards and then the PSAs and stuff. Well, when they made the change to me at Hazard, I had suggested, me and Brian are both very similar in our styles. We sound different, but our styles of how we call things are both pretty energetic and like that. And we talked to the NCAA. I was like, hey, we're kind of the same. If it's just the same with you, we'd like to split the action down the middle. He's got one half, I got the other, and then we split everything basically, and they were cool with that. Again, that first year in 2016 when New York was kind of tough because there was still a very, very vocal portion of the internet that was very unhappy that they let Sandy go from that response, from that role. So it was really, it's like, let's put it in wrestling parlance. Like, whoever followed Dan Gable was not going to have a pretty good run of it. So it's, a little bit like that. When you follow somebody who's a legend, there's going to be comparisons. There's going to be the immediate knee jerk. So that was part of it where we're just like, don't screw up. But so it's a two announcer gig. And then that first year being in Madison Square Garden, having the opportunities to have a little bit more flexibility with how their state-of-the-art operation is. Yeah. Hey, we're going to try to interview some people on the side. And that first year, we did not want to be a show of any sort. We did not. I mean, they were putting us on the big screen with these Matt Talk segments, which I had nothing to do with the name, but I'm not going to object because it's my company, my brand. But it was like one of those things like, we kind of like shied away from a little bit. And by the end of the third day, I think we were like, okay, I think we can definitely, people have kind of see how we interact. But it's two announcers, and Hazard's a lot more, I think he's more comfortable with being the roving microphone guy. Like if there was a challenge, he'd run down to the mat and call it, things like that, where I like to have all my stuff quickly accessible. Like if it's not off the top of my head, I want to be able to do it. I don't want to be lost and say something wrong. So I'd be, being point there. But honestly, I never got a chance to really work with Ed. Worked with Ken Berger a lot, worked with Sandy a lot, worked with Hazard a lot. I've worked with, I've worked with a lot of announcers. So I was going to work with John Peterson, who's not that John Peterson, but a guy from St. Cloud State. We were going to do Division threes until that was canceled the day before. Right. One of the hardest announcements I ever had to make. I had to tell those kids that were warming up on the mat their season was over. That's not a PA announcement that I ever want to repeat. Yeah. But it's a dream. If give me my, if I'm there as one mic, it's Brian Hazard every day of the week because Brian's been, over the years we've known each other pretty well, but through the course of this, him and I really have developed a really great relationship where, USA Wrestling's putting us together to do things, and we spent a lot of time bouncing ideas off of each other. And here's the thing: if we think one of us has a bad idea, if we suggest something, we will both have no problems telling each other, I don't like that. Like there is a dialogue and a trust factor there that is, it's not like we share the same brain because we think differently, but we think the same in so many different ways. So having Brian there and having him want the same things, to want to present it right, to make it about the athletes and maybe slide and make it fun because, we're not the show. But the NCAA has given us a little bit of flexibility to, we're not stiffs. And at some point we say something that may not have, it may have fallen flat. You'll get that look and you're like, okay, we don't do that again. But it's just having Brian there. He's really become one of my best friends and, somebody that we call, we call and talk about wrestling most of the time. Throughout the course of this with the ODU situation, his son transferred from Lehigh to ODU, and Brian went through a situation where he was going to go to William & Mary and they dropped the program, and now his son's program's been dropped and looking for places to go. And I don't want to say ride or die, but Hazard's my ride or die on the microphone. Berger's gave me a lot of opportunities to open up, and we're a different style. I announced with him at the early Beast of the East, and Sandy and I have done Division threes, and we've done the Midlands and stuff together. But when you got somebody that was right there the first day I was about to get on the plane, and somebody who was trying to get me in trouble at the Buffalo Wild Wings when I may not have been of age, 20 some years ago.
Oh,
And somebody that's just got a I mean, I joke about it all the time. When I got Brian to come with us to the World Championships, I talked to him and it's like, hey, that's 9 days. I'm the only English voice. I need some relief. And me and Brian split days, and we're sitting there just goofing off. I mean, we're working, but when the mic is off, we're sitting there just, it's jokes that you probably can't repeat to your mother. It's just, it's just so cool. I mean, Tony Rotundo, the photographer's like, you guys, that's good thing there's no HR here, we have so much fun with it, and like I said, if it wasn't, I mean, Ed, I think is the guy who set the bar, but when it comes to the greatest tag team, I think me and Brian are right there right now.
When I see Hazard doing an event, I will make sure that I text him something, like he'll say something like a little off the wall, and I will text him just to mess with his head to see when he gets it, and then he'll correct himself over the PA or something. He'll look at me and he'll just shake his head, because it's something just like to poke and mess with him a little bit, But,
well, that's another thing too, because now it's one of those strange things that having grown up in the wrestling media, like there's a lot of people that go to the nationals, and you're one of these people, for example. You have seen me since my very beginnings.
Yeah.
So, and Mike, you were at New Kent right when I was starting, right is about the time I started to leave the state. Yep. And it was like, okay, people remember the kid from Pocosin. People remember, the Matt Talk guy from ODU. And then, when you say something on a microphone and it's tough, everybody in the building knows who the heck you are. Yeah. So like at Pittsburgh one year, Lock Haven had a really great crowd right behind us. And oddly enough, I'm wearing a shirt from Lock Haven, and they weren't in the top 10. So we wanted to go through, and we were talking about the top 10 teams for the finals, and Lock Haven's right behind. Huge crowd, like, come on, JB, come on, man. You got to say, it's like, I can't really jump off some of those scripts, but it's like when you say something, like one year they wanted to get the ballots for the OW for the, which match do you want for the finals? And they had me announce it. And like, we're still at 184. And I'm like, he's like, go ahead and announce it. And they're like, oh, come on. And I'm getting DMs on Twitter. Like, you ought to know better. I mean, just, it's, I don't want to say, oh, woe is me. I mean, it is one of the coolest things to get to do, but it's a high pressure situation. When you make a mistake, 18,000 people hear it. Mm-hmm. And then they put it on Twitter. So you got to be very careful too. So, I mean, it's, there is a cool fact, but we're holed up. I mean, it's like we may get a chance to say hi to somebody when we're done, but it's a pressure cooker up there, honestly.
The crazy thing is, like the other day, I was my family did like a Memorial Day thing, and like my brother-in-law's dad was there, and I was talking to my brother-in-law about how you were going to be on Wednesday and stuff, and my brother-in-law's dad was like, "You mean the website guy?" Because my brother-in-law has been out of sport for a long time. He was wrestling right around that same time. There's early 2000s into the 90s, and he went to WVU, but his dad was like, the website guy, I remember him.
Yeah, the Matt Talk guy. That was, in my days too, like we'd have recruits come into the wrestling house, which that's not really a place you wanted to take recruits in those eras. It's like, there's 4 dogs, a rusted out pool table, and the Matt Talk guy is smoking a cigarette outside. Like, real great. Matt Hill, the head coach at Edinburgh, was at my house on his recruiting trip. Not an impressive performance there by that particular, the Gray Simons era. But Matt Talk guys, how I introduce myself to people for a little bit too.
I love it.
So has wrestling in Virginia, I know you haven't been in Virginia for forever. Do you think it's better today, or has it been better in the past? What do you see?
It's a couple different ways to take it. One, from, just not just saying this because you've got a VAWA banner in the background, but I think our USA Wrestling chapter has been steadily improving, because right when I came in is right when Roy Hill and Bill Swank came in. Yeah. So the previous administration, there were still some of the same people are still involved. It's been a long time, but it just, they had to fix a lot of things. It seemed like there seemed to be a little bit of a disorganized, cliquish type of thing with a certain, and in that time, PWA was the club. I mean, PWA was putting out the All-Americans. I mean, the kids were coming from the South Side to the Peninsula to
Yep.
wrestle at PWA.
Yep.
That's unheard of. I mean, at the time, Kevin Darkus was coaching there. I mean, you had, Moreland was coaching there for a bit. I mean, you had it was one of the best freestyle clubs in the country before things like Young Guns was even a thing. PWA predates that by 30-something, 40 years.
Yeah.
So that was one thing, but the USA State chapter wasn't super organized. And then one of those things is they brought me out to Fargo as a media guy. So everybody back home on their 33.6 dial-up modem, super blazing fast, were getting the results of their kids, within 10 minutes of those long giant bout sheets being brought over by the pairing officials. This is before, we had track wrestling. So there's part of that. And then taking kids on trips, the junior duels were never a thing. The cadet duels, schoolboy duels, they were never things. I mean, it was one of those things where you just started to see it getting better. And from the high school side, single A was at the time, I think only 29 or 30 schools. And before they went to the 6-class system, the level of single A wrestling was had improved had leaps and bounds. It wasn't just Brentsville, Strasburg, and Manassas Park, and then everybody else.
Right.
I mean,
Matthews was really tough with that.
Yeah, they had there was end of Shoemaker's years. Matthews was really picking up. Tom Holliday had some really good teams there.
Yep.
I still will never forget Will Holliday teching Stu McGee in the finals of the Matt Talk Ram Rumble at Lafayette. The AA state champ and the single A state champ.
Oh wow.
The single A state champ teched him.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was
Holloway's kid was tough as shit.
yeah. The guy played 7-9. He played all sports. He played every sport at Matthews.
Yeah.
Wow.
Had a pretty good football career at Christopher Newport as well. But so the wrestling, I saw the quality was getting better. They were building a lot of AA high schools. Got a lot of rejiggering. I mean, Lafayette, became, Shoemaker really helped bring them into a force in the Bay Rivers. What you guys did at New Kent has been, nothing short of remarkable. I mean, Great Bridge was in its heyday. Western Branch had fallen off a little bit, but Cox had come back up. Hickory had became it. I mean, the South Side was just super good as always. And then you started, all those kids started going to Fargo, and all of a sudden, Richmond, the Central Region in AAA, went from having 2 state place winners to having 9 in the finals. Like we're talking to that era with like Austin Coburn and that group that came through, that, the Ayalas, those group of kids that came through. And then the VHSL done and screwed something up. They fixed something that wasn't broken. And it was, granted, as much as I would have loved to have had a dual meet state championship, they stopped that in 1996 when Great Bridge beat Franklin County 66-0 in the finals. Okay. Not really competitive for a state tournament, but all of a sudden the 6-class system, and that was one of our most listened to VAWA podcasts, was about the system. And then, all the things that went around with, we had all the system that just crapped all over itself, and how they've basically looked at wrestling and be like, we'll do it. You can't put wrestling in the same vein as swimming or softball, or the sports don't act the same. They don't need to be treated the same. Pennsylvania has how many classes for football, Rob? What, 4?
No, they're
at 6.
They're up to
6 now?
5 or 6. Yeah.
Wrestling's got 2. Well, some sports have 3.
Yeah.
Well, no, we all have to have 6. No, you don't. You can have 2 classes or 3 classes in Virginia. And then, and then we've got the private schools, which are outside of Liberty Christian, they're in their own little world too. So what's frustrating is while we get the kids, some good kids that go to Fargo, they have to go to the Super 32. They have to be on one of these teams that has a good in with the Beast or the Iron Man or the Powerade or top of, what's the Council Rock one? Escape the Rock. Yeah. You have to be on those teams to get noticed. And then, you're hoping that the guys at Intermat or Flo or Willie picks up on your rankings so they can keep you on a list and then go to Fargo. I mean, it's really hard to be a state champion and be like, nobody recruits to state championships anymore because there's too many of them, and having them in so many different places, I think it's hurt the sport of Virginia. I think it's hurt our kids.
I think so too.
It's hurt our kids to the point. And then they went with this when the years they tried, at least in the Hampton Roads area, where they tried to say, all right, this is our conference. We're going to have Gloucester in the same conference with Great Bridge. And instead of your district, that's your conference. And they tried to do that before they went back to no, we'll do the old districts. And then you split off for the postseason. Okay, fine, whatever. I'm fine with 6 classes for team sports. Individual sports, it does not work. So
the conferences lost so much money. They scrapped that pretty quick.
I mean, they were spending, you're talking looking at some of these regional breakups, I was like, wait, Perry McClure, I think, was in the East region in
Yeah.
like 1A or 2A East or something.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at where Pocoson's at now because they're, I must keep an eye on the old alma mater. And there was a team with, I think they just won their third straight state title. Well, 3 years ago, the first title, they had a good squad. And I was curious how they'd match up with you guys. I'm curious how they'd match up with Christiansburg. I mean, I think they had beaten a couple of these state championship teams in dual meets. So I'm like, I want to know how good that team is compared to, say, our 97 team, which was second, but was our best team. Now, they won the state in 99, so we don't know how good these teams are. I think Patrick McCormick won 4 state titles in 3 different classes.
Yeah.
It's like, I think it was a double A, a class 3, and a class 2 or something like that.
And Cole, the same thing. Cole's one of, the youngest McCormick's won at least 3.
Yeah, he won 3
divisions. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's hurt because no longer can a college coach come to Chesapeake or Fairfax, wherever the state tournament, the AAA tournament is, and get in some years that, when the Central wasn't as balanced as it was, as good as it is now, okay, Eastern 4 beating a Central 1 was, of course, it wasn't like a big deal. Now it's like, if you had the teams in the arrangements that they used to be in, the AAA state tournament, or as the schools that would be in there, would be a knockdown, drag out from the first whistle, because those schools don't have as much fluff anymore. You're not sliding it now. I mean, I think, was it Lakeland had a kid one year when the first year of this thing that was like hadn't won a match, qualified for a state tournament?
Yeah,
that can't happen. And no disrespect to that kid in a Lakeland.
A region had 4 participants. He was the 4th.
12 teams in a region, and you only got 4 kids show up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I remember my junior year, we had 9 teams in Region 1, and then they brought in the Battlefield. That was actually the first time I met Swank, was when he was coaching Louisa with Ed Dyke. There's another name from blast from the past. But, we were from 9 to 16 teams. I mean, it was the Bay Rivers District plus Matoka. And that was when Matoka was garbage. They had 2 guys. Actually, they had 3. The Adrian and Terrain Austin and Sean Pennington. That was all they had. Yeah. And they were hammers. But it was like, okay, it's the Bay Rivers plus Matoka. And when we took 14 to state that year, I was like, well, no wonder. So, well, not in place. But it's just, I think wrestling, I can't say if it's better now because I don't know. Because all the good kids they don't hit each other. I really wish we'd have more kids doing the Vision Quest type thing, going or doing the Austin DeSanto thing, going to meet up. I mean, Colin Dozier and Jordan Frischkorn did wrestle one another in a dual meet, but they could have wrestled each other in the region finals and the state finals. Well, they both wanted to be 4-timers. Jordan got beat his freshman year by John Erickson, but it was one of the things like, well, does Dozier go the weight where Frischkorn is? No, he went like 12, 30, 20, 19, 12, 19. It's just, I want to see the better kids hit in the state finals because that's where the memories are made. Oh, it's I think one year Cardinal and McCormick, I think, might have been the 8-9. They might have wrestled in the Beast like round of 16 or something. Like those are like, if those are the 2 best, why isn't that a state final? It's like, man, do you remember that match where so and so beat? So I mean, just I wish we could have, like I said, the college coaches aren't going to the state tournament to recruit you now anyway.
Right.
Why are you going to run a different way to win 4 titles? I mean, it's like,
especially in Virginia.
Like I said, I wish there's some kids that definitely would do that, but to make the team better, you put your kids at weights, and that's a coaching decision too. But at the same point, I wish we'd have more Friday night duels. And this is, Mike, something we were talking about on Twitter last year. The Friday night fights type of thing, where when we wrestled Great Bridge year after I graduated, Stevie and Billy were at each other's throats. There was definitely some vitriol between those 2. It was kind of fun to watch, and we had the fire marshals at Pocosin because the gym seated 800. There were not 800 people in that place. That place was jam-packed. Yeah. It was January. It was on TV, had the mat lamp, and Great Bridge had to get a police escort out of town. It was that type of dual meet. The week before, Bobby Ingram was an undefeated 2-time state champ. Akers was a 3-time AA champ. Cox throttled us. I think it was like 49-12. Gym was sold out for 1 match, Akers versus Ingram. Akers gave him his first high school loss. This is 1998. I mean, this is like 97, 98, 99. Yeah, it was in that era. Like, we don't – this is why we struggle for people to come to the dual meets. Like, I honestly, I know it's a scheduling thing and dates, but You know, Smithfield, New Kent, and Pocosin. No offense, guys. You guys should not be wrestling each other the same day. That's a Friday night and a Friday night. Sell your gym out type of thing for me. And I'm not trying to tell you how to run your team, but
we get a try
there. You get the whole town to show up. I mean, where's the kid? I went to a dual meet on a Wednesday night to a packed gym. If I'd had to sit through a tri meet or a quad meet, I don't know. Would I be a wrestling guy?
But it's the VHSL and their calendar dates. Fortunately with us at St. Chris, we don't have that, so we can schedule those dual meets, those one-on-ones. And our gym is not very big, so when we wrestle Benedictine or we wrestle New Kent, whether it's in the wrestling gym or the basketball gym, that place is going to be standing room only. And you want to talk about like being in a really tight atmosphere that is just incredible. Like the last year we wrestled Colonial Forge. I think it was Ian Squire's only year as their head coach. Our basketball gym was packed. I mean, it was like standing room only, and it was just such a cool event, for the wrestlers to be out in front of all their peers and families and all that. But, as a Pennsylvania guy to come in there and just look at a packed gym, whereas when I was at Ponix, our gym sat 2,000 people, we'd pull out, one side of bleachers and have like a quarter of it full for like a crosstown rival. It's not the same. It's so much that, it's growing, it's getting better, but at the same time, then the VHSL done and go, the 6 divisions, it's just kind of like we keep shooting ourselves in the foot.
I just don't know who's good anymore.
I think they ought to do a point system like Pennsylvania does.
Yeah.
Really, you can put some duels in there.
Yeah.
But if one thing that the VHSL, they'll mess it. Like you give them a suggestion, they'll mess up.
They take path of least resistance.
Yeah. So.
Anyway. So any last thoughts, Jason? I know we've kept you.
This has been great, by the way.
Hold on, I'm getting an update. The wife has moved her call, so we can go a little overtime. I'm not known for my third period work, but I mean, you've asked all of 2 questions. I mean,
but the crazy thing is through this conversation that you've covered like a lot of the stuff, sharing memories and things like that. Now, the one question that's kind of a 2-parter: what is the very best, like the coolest event that you've ever covered? And then on the flip side, what is the worst event that you've covered?
Oh man, I'm gonna have to think about the worst one. But without question, the Olympic Games, because my daughter's middle names are London and Rio, so they're born in Olympic years, so it's a very special thing. London wasn't completely about the Olympics, but then Rio completely was. Although if it was a boy, I would not have given my son Rio as a middle name. I was blessed with two girls, but to see history, to witness history is one thing. To be there, in London, I was there watching and working for USA Wrestling, watching Jordan Burroughs and Jake Varner win their golds, and Coleman Scott win a bronze, and Clarissa Chun just overcome so much to win a bronze. But to witness probably the most powerful moment in sports that I've ever seen, and that was Helen Maroulis win first gold medal for the United States of America.
Yeah.
And to really, the moment is so special in so many ways, because as an American and as a sports fan, you understand what the Stars and Stripes means. You grow up watching Carl Lewis and Florence Griffith Joyner and the Dream Team, and then you get older and you watch Kurt Angle cry his eyes out after finally getting his hand raised against Abbas Jadidi, or you see, you watch Bruce Baumgartner win a bronze medal from the hospital bed or from the hospital room where your high school teammate is in a coma. Like, those are things about sports and wrestling that all tied into those emotions, and they all flashed through my head as Helen beat Superwoman. She beat the greatest women's wrestler in the history of wrestling to do it.
Yeah.
And then to have the privilege to say, I'm trying to coin it, the greatest 15 words in sports. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem of the United States of America.
Mhm.
It was the single hardest thing I've ever had to say and the single greatest thing I've ever had to say at the same time. So
Yeah.
I'm fired up.
that like it literally took my breath away to try to say that.
Right.
And every now and then, this is not just me being egotistical or anything, I'll go back and try to find a clip, because that footage is really hard to find because NBC has a lockdown on Olympic footage. So if you can hear it in the background, I mean, it's one of those things I've got to find it. It's like, all right, hopefully I can get it. But it was that moment later, Kyle Snyder winning was awesome. That was one of those awesome things to say it again, being the youngest, but watching him win the Worlds to me was a little bit more impressive the year before, and to get to do that with Hazard and Ken Berger, and our Virginia crew down there in Vegas was really something special. And he won on 9/11. Geez, it's more Hollywood scripting there. But Helen at the Olympics was special because it was not an easy games to work. I mean, it was a good hour, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half just to get to the facility and back to the hotel. There were late nights. They lost my luggage. I traveled on the worst travel day of the year, the day of the Delta shutdown, August 8th. So I'm wearing I still wear my Brazilian jorts. I'll rock them. I had to buy them in an emergency. Me and Julia Salata did get to see photobomb Ryan Seacrest. I did not have clothes, but I could definitely knew how to get on NBC late night with Seacrest and Al Michaels in the background. But that was the single greatest moment of my announcing career was that, because you can't top that. You just can't. I mean, you meet I've known Helen since she was 15, and spent time when I was working at USA Wrestling. So I like I said, we're not like super tight or anything, but we're friends, and it's one of those things that's just like, it was powerful. Now, worst tournament. Oh man. I don't know if it's the worst tournament, but it was one of the worst experiences, and it's a tie. Because
I'm wondering if I was there.
No, but Jack Harcourt may have been. And it was either 1999 or 2003. I'm going to start with the first one. They were both the Virginia Challenge Middle School State Tournament.
Oh, no. No.
So, and the formative years, I mean, I was one of the charter members of the Virginia Challenge, and we had our growing pains.
Yeah.
And we were trying to get the wrestling tournament software to work, and it was the old preferred educational software. So it's me, Mike Newbern, and I think Tabitha Boswick were trying to figure out how to get this thing paired. And it was like some class assignment was actually the software. And we had like 800 kids in one division. We had 10 mats at the field house.
Mm-hmm.
And at the point we're sitting there at work through all hours.
Where was this
at ODU at the field house.
Okay.
I mean, I think Colin Dozier was a fifth grader. That's how long ago this was. And at about 6:30 in the morning, we go back to the hotel room. Me and Newbern are sitting there, and we lay down to rest our heads for a minute. And he wakes up. He goes, "Twink, screw it. We're doing it by hand." And this is at 6:30. We're starting at 9. So that was and I had the best handwriting of the bunch, because Frank Lepoli's not going to be able to write this stuff down. So I ended up being the guy who had to write 800. I mean, Tabitha helped too, because she had the very curly cue of the writing. And it was just like, that was a rough experience from a pairing standpoint. I mean, we were there. I mean, we worked. We had a heck of a tournament. Had a great group of kids come through. Not without your great Rich Picosin drama, like any time.
Sure.
Then a couple years later, we worked through the years throughout the night, and I was right on campus, and I didn't sleep through the night, and it was just because we were laying down mats and we're getting everything done, running the Kinkos. And in the morning, I went to the 7-Eleven right on Hampton Boulevard, got 4 Red Bulls, and at one point I just slammed them all. And it was Super Bowl Sunday, and I collapsed. Well, I just fell like, whoom. I just passed out right on the table, and they thought I was just joking. So they put this big old like Uncle Sam hat on me and a donut on my sleeve and like broken pencils. Tass Robertson was messing with everybody. Was like, and then they realized, wait a minute, hey Jason, and I'm like, he's out. Like, and then I wake up and I've got an ice bag. And the only reason I know what they did to me is because they have a picture of it. So I got an ice bag in the back of my neck, and they take me to the hospital. I'm severely dehydrated. They pumped 2.5 bags of IV in me. And, I'm in college. I hydrate pretty well. So
Yeah.
I thought. But those were the two worst experiences. They weren't the worst tournaments. They were just the worst personal experiences.
Right.
Trying to think. I mean, I haven't – usually I kind of pick and choose my events. So sometimes, just sometimes when you go – your tournament runs long. I mean, we had one session at the Midlands where we had 180 extra entries, and we had no break. We were supposed to have a 4-hour break. We had no break. We had 15 minutes to go to the bathroom, grab a quick bite, and me and Sandy are back for the next session. So that was a rough one, and we haven't had that situation since we limit the entries there. But though I know that first year with Newbern, and I'm editing his words here too, but it was just like we're doing it by hand, and I'm just like, oh boy. And it was way to Matt. And then that last night we're cutting off at match 100, and the parents of bout 101 were pissed because they've been waiting it was just. Well, I also had a computer stolen from me at 2 different tournaments. So that's always fun. One at the AAA AA match where may or may not know who the kid was that did that. He is since living a life of, I don't know. He gets 3 squares a day. We'll just leave it at that. And then,
I have a feeling I know who you're talking about.
Likewise.
Yeah. And then, the other was in Fargo where for some reason I want to bury my streaming laptop underneath Mount 1 because who's going to find it there? Somebody found it. So those are some rough experiences.
That person, Robertson.
Getting the Tashkent Rumble in Uzbekistan in 2014 was kind of rough. Since then, I don't travel without dude wipes or Imodium when I go overseas. So I'm very picky about what I eat.
Yep.
So, like I said, I haven't really had any bad experiences as tournaments because usually when I'm announcing, I get frustrated. I can get flustered, but ultimately, it's my problem to fix. And, if the internet goes down, there's certain things that had happened, like, the Worlds one year in Budapest. I'm on an end zone, so I couldn't see the clocks, and the criteria was underlined on the wrong side. And I'm like yelling at the clock people from UWW, who won? I've got to call who wins the world title here, and they haven't raised the hand yet. I have no idea what's going on. And then the underline was on the wrong side because the scorekeeper had entered the score instead of it being a 4, it was 2 2s, and it was just there's little things like that at almost every tournament, but nothing. Just that first year, that was also the last time I ever moved mats. I said, nope, because me and Derek Lapoli, Frank's son, basically rolled out and taped up 8 mats. The first year was 8 mats, which was too few, and that place was packed.
Been there.
So, yeah.
So,
you learn a lot about yourself setting up a big event.
Yeah, you also, and it's funny because I give Frank so much crap because he's been a friend since I was in high school, and one of those guys that got me in with the Virginia Challenge early, and it was, I always joke, it says, if you're at a tournament with Frank and you're not ready to kill him before the first whistle blows, something's wrong. Because it's entirely too smooth. If something's too smooth, something's gone wrong. We forgot about something. Because Frank, man, he would pump it up. He one time, I got to give you one quick Frank Lapoli story because we have so many. So my first year in college, I'm at ODU at Whitehurst. And I wasn't living with wrestlers, but I had Jeff was my roommate, and then through the door were Jay and Justin. And Frank and this is the first year I started Mat Talk. And I had, arrows.com/detwink. It was no domain name. It was Microsoft Publisher. And Frank had a habit of calling at like 7:30 in the morning every day. And like to the point where my roommates hated him so much. And because we had actual phone and an answering machine. So one night, it's like a Tuesday, we're up all night. I think we were watching like From Dusk Till Dawn or something. And, we're doing things in the dorms you're not supposed to be doing when you're not of age. And, and then about 6:30, the sun's starting to come up from the Elizabeth River behind us. And Justin goes, who actually went to Albemarle. Jay went to Appomattox, and Jeff went to Cortland. So they were all Virginia guys. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, is that Frank guy going to call here soon? I'm like, yeah. He goes, dude, let's change the answering machine. So they changed so we all changed the answering machine. And Justin goes, and hits record. He goes, hello? Oh, hey, Frank. Uh-huh. Yep. So he does that. Well, I had one of those machines too that you could hear when they called and they were talking on the message, you could hear it back. So Frank calls, we're like, we're just waiting there. We're all like, we're still like just half cocked. You're like, he called like 7:31 or something like that. He goes, hey, Jason, it's Frank. Oh, hey, Frank. And it was, you could not have scripted this out more perfectly. And this is what Derek was, I think a junior or a senior. and they were lighting it up. They were, I need you to send this to Lanny Bryant at Wrestling USA Magazine. So Great Bridge has had 89 out of 90 bonus victories. I mean, it was perfect. And at the end, and then the last line was, okay, hey, can you write this down? I was like, yeah, hold on, let me go get a pen. Legitimately on the video, like this is on the recording. And he goes, okay, I'm back now. Beep. And you could just hear Frank go. He just drops an F-bomb, goes, beep. You just call me back. So for the rest. So for about 3 years after that, every time Frank called, which would be like, I got the Suncom bill, the old unlimited, weeknights and weekends. Well, at one point he called me 159 times in a month. And every single one of those times is like, say Jason, say Jason twice. Okay, good, it's you. Never trusted me again to answer the phone without it being a message. So that was, I mean, it's one of those fun Frank stories. It's just like, man, we still tell that story. And I'm glad to tell that story because it's one of those things that makes everybody smile. Because if Frank ever gets a hold of your phone number, you know what's going to happen. It's, especially in those late 90s, early 2000s when it was heavy Virginia Duels, heavy Virginia Challenge. So
he works a lot with Chris Harris now. He actually coaches a friend of ours from up in Richmond that coached Godwin for a while. And he's now, I guess Frank coaches for a middle school in Norfolk.
Yeah, he's been doing that for years. He actually,
Chris Harris.
Wait for your email newsletter. I sit in my car and read it before I go into school. It's like, all right, Frank, you get it by 6:01, guaranteed.
Well, wow, this has definitely been probably
awesome.
the most entertaining episode ever. And we had BC LaPrade on last week, and that was pretty entertaining.
Like I said, he's named after a headache powder for a reason.
We got to.
You didn't have to coach him.
Yeah.
Although it was his dad, real quick, another last Fargo tie-in. So I think I told this story the other day. I was coming back for the Virginia Duels, and Pocosin was in a try or a quad or whatever at Tab, which took all of like 12 minutes, even though there was 5 teams wrestling. Way too many forfeits. And so I walk in and I'm paying my money, and I see McCormick. I'm walking in with Mike McCormick, and LaPrade's dad's behind me. He goes, "Hey, didn't I meet you in Fargo?" I was like, "Sir, you got to be a little bit more specific. We're at a bar." I was like, "You're going to have to be a little more specific." He goes,
"Keep going.
We're at the turf, sir. You're going to have to be more specific." So, yeah, that's one of those fun stories, sir.
Oh, BC LaPrade. Yeah. But, thank you so much for coming on. I will get this up to YouTube and all the social media outlets. So, people will get a good laugh and hopefully reminisce a little bit. So thank you very much, Jason, for coming on tonight.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to take us out tonight.
Appreciate you, man.
With the winning song from our most recent tournament. We did a tournament of Ultimate Wrestling songs, and we're gonna leave tonight with the winner.
Well, Enter Sandman.
You gave it away.
Everyone knows. The 6 people that listen to this.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for like 4 weeks. So, thank you, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. This was Talkin' Wrestling, and we'll see you maybe next week and maybe another week. It's been real, guys.
A big thank you to the future mayor of Pocosin.